India's democratic fabric is caught in a complex web that many overlook. And at its center, say some researchers, is the Center for the Study of Developing Societies, CSDS. This isn't just another NGO in the policy landscape. This detailed research paper unveils a multi-layered nexus of foreign funding, ideological collaborations, and coordinated narratives that, according to the report, systematically seek to influence India's sovereignty and national discourse. But here's where it gets controversial. Are organizations like CSDS genuinely committed to impartial research and social progress? Or are they conduits for foreign interests masked as civil society activism? Let's dive into the key revelations, some of which might challenge what you thought you knew. Genesis and philosophy of CSDS. Founded in 1963 by Rajni Kothari, the CSDS started with a mission that, on the surface, seemed focused on academic study and societal development. Yet, as the paper meticulously describes, the foundation's early connections were closely tied to entities like the Asia Foundation, later revealed to have CIA affiliations. This raises uncomfortable questions about whether CSDS's origin was ever truly independent of overseas influence. Over time, CSDS's scholars and leadership have often critiqued Hindu society, promoted secularist and caste-based perspectives, and been accused of framing divisive narratives through academic analysis. And this is the part most people miss. Such intellectual currents may not just be academic exercises. They can actively shape perceptions about majority communities, paint minorities as perennial victims, and indirectly further foreign policy agendas that challenge India's unity. A tangled web of foreign finance, who pays and why. A deep dive into CSDS's financial records reveals an increasing dependence on foreign grants alongside Indian government funding, primarily via the Indian Council of Social Science Research, ICSSR. Since 2016, the organization has officially disclosed receiving at least 15.6 crore under India's Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, FCRA, though actual amounts could well be larger. Let's examine the key foreign players. Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, KAS, a German state-funded foundation linked to the Christian Democratic Union. KAS has contributed over 2.6 crore and is known for exporting Western democratic ideals and backing political interventions in countries seen as out of sync with Western norms. Critics might ask, is CSDS subtly helping cultivate change in India that aligns with outside interests? International Development Research Centre, IDRC. This Canadian agency, part of Canada's government policy apparatus, funded CSDS for 8 years, sometimes making up a third of its annual budget. IDRC's focus on identity politics, illustrated by Canada's outspoken support for Khalistani groups, raises alarms about possible indirect support for separatism in India. Siimanpuu Foundation, backed by Finland's government. This group finances CSDS's initiatives under the guise of ecological democracy and Adivasi empowerment. However, CSDS-affiliated networks have amplified themes frequently associated with Naxalite causes or ideologically anti-Hindu sentiments, often sidestepping concerns about extremism. Berggruen Institute, bankrolled by a global billionaire, this institute's magazine, Noema, frequently publishes pieces casting India as authoritarian or intolerant, often featuring authors tied to anti-India lobbies or even hostile neighboring nations. U.S. philanthropic powerhouses, Ford Foundation, Henry Luce Foundation, Omidyar, Open Society Foundations. With a global reputation for supporting regime change and promoting identity-driven activism, these groups have long provided resources to CSDS and similar organizations. Their funding programs regularly highlight narratives of minority victimhood, rising fascism, and government overreach in India. But is this external support fostering healthy debate or engineering social discord? Sciences Po, FNSP, France's prestigious political science school, has funneled generous funds to CSDS, while leading faculty like Christophe Jaffrelot routinely produce research critical of Hindu identity and the Modi administration, contributing to India's negative portrayal in international forums. Partnerships with Western media and investigative networks. One of the most eye-opening findings is the dense network linking CSDS to global media freedom organizations and investigative outlets like Reporters Collective, Bellingcat, OCCRP, and GIJN. These networks, often funded by U.S. and European governments and, controversially, open proxies of Western intelligence agencies like the National Endowment for Democracy, routinely amplify CSDS studies or collaborate with its researchers. This feedback loop means critical reports on India, sometimes lacking context, are quickly picked up by international watchdogs and media, feeding global indices and spurring further foreign intervention. And this is where debate heats up. Are domestic criticisms becoming global cudgels used by foreign actors to pressure India, or are they necessary correctives to unchecked state power? Intellectual strategy, sowing division, or enabling justice? The research contends that CSDS output, whether surveys, articles, or panel discussions, tend to reinforce four recurrent themes. 1. Dividing the Hindu majority. By framing socio-political analysis mainly through Western-inspired caste categories, CSDS research is said to deepen rifts among Dalits, Adivasis, OBCs, and mainstream Hindus. This approach is often compared to tactics used by separatist groups. 2. Promoting Dalit Muslim solidarity. An oft-repeated narrative is the alignment of Dalit and Muslim interests as co-victims of majority oppression, advocating unity that, intentionally or not, sidelines broader Hindu cohesion. 3. Demonizing Hindus in the state. Noteworthy scholars associated with CSDS produce work that frequently undermining sovereignty. The report alleges that CSDS's research often supports activism, protests, and international campaigns that erode trust in India's governance, particularly on sensitive issues in Kashmir, the Northeast, or laws related to national security, frequently aligning with the priorities of foreign sponsors. Alliances with hostile and anti-India actors, perhaps most controversially. The report details relationships between CSDS and groups or funders with openly adversarial stances on India. These include partnerships with U.S. deep state organizations, NED, Ford Foundation, long associated with covert political operations. Participation in campaigns with Khalistani, Islamist, or urban Naxalite figures, notably during events like farmers' protests or Delhi's anti-CAA movements, accepting support, whether direct or indirect, from sources tied to anti-India activism in neighboring countries, or even former officials with potentially hostile agendas. Emerging patterns, narrative engineering, or civil society. The evidence points to a recurring pattern. Foreign governments and international foundations with strategic interests in India collaborate with local think tanks and activists, such as CSDS, who produce and amplify critiques of India's government, majority values, or policies. These criticisms then ricochet through global media and rights organizations, generating pressure for change, and sometimes opening doors.